Welcome back to another episode of the All Things Dead podcast, a podcast dedicated to everything in the Walking Dead universe, from the OG, The Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead World Beyond, and hopefully any future spin-offs, movies, anything like that. Hopefully I'll get into some episodes recapping. We had the season 11 trailer drop and everything else like that. So anything in the Walking Dead universe is found here on the All Things Dead podcast. Before we dive into another recap, this podcast can be found anywhere you listen to podcasts. And so if you're listening to the audio version, thank you so much. Please follow it, subscribe to it, leave a review, leave a comment. It helps it out so much. The video version can be found on the Coach Steve Show YouTube channel. The Coach Steve Show is another one of my podcasts. I just haven't made an All Things Dead YouTube channel. It was just easier to make it off of my already made YouTube channel. So please, if you go to the Coach Steve Show YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, and that way you get notified when I drop an episode for the All Things Dead. If you go to the playlist tab, there is an All Things Dead podcast playlist. If you don't want to focus on the other podcasts because it's all sports related or Marvel related, you'll find the All Things Dead podcast playlist there. So please hit the subscribe button, like it, leave a comment there to try to help me grow this. Thank you so much if you do that for me. We are just marching along, recapping the show. It's working really hard to watch these episodes. I'm telling you, it's so hard. And life's so hard. No, guys, I'm just kidding. We are recapping. We are on season 1, episode 6, which is the season finale of the season. So season 1, episode 6, titled TS-19, or I'll just say TS-19. The first season only gets 6 episodes, and then the rest are 16 episodes. Like I said in the last episode of the podcast, usually first seasons don't have as many episodes because you don't know. You don't know if the network's going to continue to have it. If the network drops it, is another network going to pick up your show? So moving right along, we ended season 1, episode 5 with Rick and the group are outside the CDC. Rick's pleading if somebody's inside to open the door, and everybody's trying to get him to leave, and then the door opens up, and we that's where we ended up. But to start this episode, if you guys remember way back when Rick came back, Lori told Shane, like, you told me my husband was dead, and he said he thought he was, and she's like, you lied to me. And so it looks like Shane, because again, Rick was in a hospital by himself, woke up, nobody was there, and so the question became, why was his family not at the hospital seeing him? Was this just a break because he was in a coma? Were they taking a break seeing them and they were out doing something? Why did nobody take him? Were they not allowed to take him? Shane told Lori he was dead, so the question became, did he say he tried to get Rick? And he said he was dead because we already know Shane's feelings towards Lori and wanted to be Carl's dad and wanted to be with Lori. Well, to start this episode, we finally get an answer. It takes us back to the hospital, and it shows Shane coming out of a room and running up. It shows military people taking hospital patients, and he's saying, I need help, someone help me. And so we can only assume that Rick's in there and he's asking for help. And then you see something horrific, Shane's grabbing a bed to go do it himself. The army just shoots all these patients. And then walkers come in to attack the military. So Shane goes sprinting back into Rick's room and is like, I'm just going to get him out myself. So it looks like the army guys, if you were in a hospital and you had any symptom, or it looks like you just may not make it, they were just killing. So I will say, I think Shane was like, you're not going to kill Rick. You're not going to kill my friend. He tries to get Rick out. But he's like looking at everything Rick's hooked up to, and no, I'm just thinking to myself, like, what's going through his mind? He's probably looking at these machines Rick is hooked up to and is probably kind of wondering, like, can I unplug these? Will it kill Rick? because I assume he was just in a coma, but is this stuff keeping him alive? And the army comes in and is looking around, and Shane's hiding, and they leave. And then like some type of bomb goes off, shakes the building, and it shuts off. Looks like it shuts off the power. And Shane like puts his head to Rick's chest and then is like crying because did Rick stop breathing for a second? Was that stuff helping him breathe? Was Shane in so much shock and so much worry? Because we all know Rick's alive. Like, I mean, it's happened. Did his heart stop for a second and then come back? Did Rick die and then wake up? But he had to have laid there for a while. So it looked like Rick, I think Shane really thought he was dead. So if you think back to the first episode when Rick came out of the room, there was a bed in front of him and he threw it out. Well, when Shane was leaving, he put the bed in front. So we finally have a little bit of an answer of what happened, because Lori's like, you told me he was dead. Well, now I think he really did. Like, now it makes no sense to put your head to his chest. There had to have been a heartbeat because we all know he was alive because he's obviously here now. But he put that bed there so the walkers wouldn't get to him. So, I mean, there's our answer. I'm not the biggest fan of Shane right now. I know I'm not the biggest fan of Lori, all that stuff's going on. But, I mean, he did try to save Rick. A lot was going on. He didn't want Rick to die. He put that in there so nobody would go in there and maybe kill him or eat him, or his body. And so, I mean, I think Shane did the right thing, so I'll give him some credit. But it's nice to start the episode that way it sets the tone, I think, for the rest of the episode, because obviously stuff happens. And then we pick up where we left off. The CDC door opens up. They run in. Jenner comes out and says, any of you infected? What do you want? And they just want it. And Rick's like, we just want a chance. He lets them in as long as they give a blood sample. And they get their stuff. They close the door. And now they're safe. They're in the CDC. They're safe. They meet Dr. Jenner. And he shows them, like, okay, here's the lab. Here's these computers. And they're like, where is everybody? He goes, this is it. This is me. I'm the only one left. Sorry for that. He's taking blood samples, and then they're telling him how bad it is. They haven't eaten in days. They had to travel there, I'm assuming, because it depends, because remember, we had the fish fry that night. They were eating that fish. I don't know if Rick and Daryl and them have eaten. Then the next day they had to work and get rid of all the walkers, bury people. The next morning they had to travel to the CDC. I don't know if it showed how long it took. Maybe just the day. So yeah, it's probably been 2 days or so since they've eaten. And so now they have a nice little party. Like, he gives them food. There's wine. I think there's whiskey and stuff. They're drinking. They even let Carl have some wine. Like, it's a good, I think in that scene it was really nice because they've been struggling. People have died. They're dealing with the walkers. Everything is gone. So it was really nice to see them just kind of have this moment of like laughter. They're eating, look like they're eating spaghetti. Like, it was just good food, and really nice to see that. But Shane is not about the party. Shane is like not impressed. Now we know this comes from Rick making the decision to go there. He thinks they should have gone to Fort Bennett. Rick just showing up in general. We saw the scene last episode where he could have shot Rick and all this stuff. So he's just not about this. And he goes, Rick, this was your plan. And where's these doctors? And looking at Jenner like, where's these doctors? And he had to tell him, like, when things fell, people left. Excuse me, before I start that, Rick sees Jenner like something's bothering him. Says, we have to thank our guest. And one of the most famous pictures for me, or a GIF, whatever you see, is Daryl going booyah to the doctor, like holding this whiskey. And they're having a good time. And then, like I said, Shane becomes the buzzkill and says, Rick, this was your plan. Where's the doctors? And Jenner has to tell him, like, when things went bad, people left. When things got worse, they really left. And then the people that stayed killed themselves, basically. And they ask him, like, why did you stay? And he said, I just want to do some good and do some research. So, I mean, there is a little bit of secrecy here. It doesn't seem like Jenner has any ill will intentions. I think Shane's just a little... I mean, I see what Shane's thinking of, like, we don't know this guy and you guys were drinking, we're having a good time. We don't know who he is. We don't know what's going on. A little curious because the way he's answering the question of, like, why are you here? Why are you the one doing research? So there are some questions that are not answered, and the way he's answering is a little off. But then he walks in, he gives them a room. They can shower. So it's like he's not doing anything ill will. Part of this is probably just driving from Shane, being jealous of Rick being back and dealing with all that. And he's kind of not the leader. He doesn't have the girl anymore. He doesn't have the son anymore. But then they all get to shower and they're having a good time. So it's nice to change the pace of, like, seeing something good. But as we can tell in this show, when things are going okay, something's going wrong. So, at this point, you're kind of like, what's going to happen? Rick finally goes to Jenner to have a conversation. Now, Rick's been drinking a little bit. He basically breaks down and tells Jenner, like, you don't know what it's like out there. You saved us. You don't know what it's like out there. Eventually we're going to die is what he tells him. Like, eventually we could die. And he goes, I won't tell any of them that. I won't tell my family that. I have to put on a brave face and keep going and keep going. And so Rick just kind of breaks down, like, it's tough to be the leader, but I'm going to put on this brave face and you have no idea what you did for us. So it seems like they're getting pretty comfortable that this is the place that they want to stay for the rest of their life. And Jenner's telling, like, it's okay. Like, pretty much that you're here. But yeah, it was kind of shocking to hear Rick say that of, like, I can't tell them we're all going to die. It just seems like at some point we're going to die because bad things were happening one after the other. And then we move on to, like I said before, where the beginning of this episode kind of sets up something for this episode. We got some answers. We finally get a Lori and Shane conversation by themselves, and Shane's drunk. Shane is very drunk, comes in and wants to talk to Lori. She's not having it, and he basically comes out and, she goes, you told me my husband was dead, and he kind of gives his side. He said, hey, you weren't there. There was guys killing people, or a bunch of people killing people. There was walkers, a lot of gunfire and explosions, and he said he tried to get Rick out of there. He was by himself. It was just him. He didn't want anything to happen to Rick. He said he was hooked up to a bunch of machines. He didn't know what to do. And then when everything shut off, he put his head to his chest, did not hear a heartbeat, so he really thought he was dead. And he goes, even so, with all that was going on, there's no way that Rick could have survived that, no way. And she goes, well, he did. He's here. And he said, he didn't say he was sorry, but he's just kind of like, I thought he was dead. He said, and then on top of it, he's like, I had you to worry about, I had Carl to worry about, and blah, 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 blah. And he said, would you have come with me if you thought he was alive? So he's like, I saved you. I saved Carl's life. And I know you like me, and he says, I love you. He straight up tells Lori, I love you. And she's like, no. And then he like tries to rape her, basically. He's like forcing her to kiss him, trying to do this, trying to do that. And then she gives him a nice old scratch on the neck, really, really bad. And it was just a very uncomfortable scene to go down. And just, as not of a fan, I don't like Lori, but that's not a situation you want her to be in. And it just shows that Shane is kind of losing it. Again, I've said a million times, he was the leader. Rick's kind of emerging as the leader. And he wants Lori. He wants to be Carl's dad and all that stuff. Then, we move on. They're all hungover from their nice time out. And, it's still bothering Lori, you can tell, but everyone's kind of hungover, and it's pretty funny. Try to have, as serious as the situation is in the show with the apocalypse, it's nice to see a little funny, a little humor in here. But they move on, and Andrea's kind of acting weird. She just lost her sister, so she's like not herself. She goes, we didn't come here for the eggs, like they're having eggs and stuff. Tell us what happened, like what's going on. And so Jenner does that. He comes into a lab and says, okay, let's look at TS-19. So this Dr. Jenner kind of takes him back into that main room and says, okay, here you go. Here's what's kind of going on. And Says, let's look at subject TS-19, and kind of shows them a visual of what happens with the brain, and shows the brain and these neurons firing, and it's very lightful, and says, this is the brain. This is thoughts, memories, actions. Everything that makes a person unique is here. So test subject 19, he said some people had sacrificed themselves when they wanted to commit suicide. He said this subject was bitten and infected, so they studied. And he says it shows how this is, when it was bitten, this whatever is, and I'm going to say virus, this bacteria, whatever, this infection attacks the brain. He said it attacks like meningitis. And it shows how the brain just kind of shuts off, and that person died. Like, when those lights go out, that person is gone. Whatever that person is gone. So, and then he said, then all of a sudden, he said it ranges. He said, before they come back, like, from the dead, he said the fastest one reported was 3 minutes. The longest was 8 hours. He said this one was a little over, about, I think it was 2 hours and 1 minute. And he said the lights kind of flicker, and it only activates the brainstem. And he said, like, I think he said the frontal lobe that makes us, like the human part doesn't come back. He said the brainstem does. It can move the body. But that's what happens. He said it's not like, he asked them, is it the same? And is that person really alive? And he said, from our study, showing what makes a person does not come back. Just the brainstem to where the body can move around. And that's about it. Like, the brainstem gets the body moving, its mouth is moving. Then comes out, they're like, you don't really know what is this? And he said, no. And then they find out, is there any others? Like, are there other people out there like you studying? And he said there were. He said he's been in the dark from anything on the outside world for a month. And they basically look at him and say, so you're telling us there's nothing anywhere? And he has no answers. So to them, it's like devastating news of like, is it just Atlanta that this is happening to? Is there anywhere to go? And according to him, by the answer, there is none. Like, whatever other CDC places or other people researching, he doesn't know of any. He doesn't think there is. He has no idea. So this is devastating news for them, but now they have a little bit of an answer looking at the brain of like what happens. Like, when you get infected, they just don't know why. He doesn't know why. That's what he was studying with the TS-19 piece. And then, of course, Dale being Dale, says there's a clock counting down. Well, what does it happens when it hits 0? Jenner gives a weird answer of saying, oh, that's when the fuel's gone. Generators are done. And this part I kind of get confused about. Rick and them go looking, and they find all these barrels that can get hooked up to the generator. It's almost empty. Then the air conditioning goes out, and the power starts to shut down. And so it's very real of, can this place continue to run and function? So they can tell this power grid's going to go out. They said there's going to be decontamination, and they're trying to figure out what that means. And as quickly as Jenner gave an answer, and as quickly as we had them, power starts to move out. The air's off, that's moving, and Jenner finally tells them, like, the French were the last people that had any sort of breakthrough. And then he said, but everything, the reason why they couldn't finish or we don't know anything is because you run out of time. He said, with the world ending, normally there's fossil fuels. People are digging fossil fuels, or you got solar. They run out of time for places to function. Like this place, he said, there's just no time. Like, if the world was functioning, they had time, they probably would have found an answer. He said they just run out of time. And then, he's quickly to say that this place is going to shut down, and Rick's trying to get everybody out of there, and then the door's shut, and you could see Jenner's lying to him saying, I can't control this, the door shuts on their own, and he shut them. Then they find out what decontamination is, and basically, he says, suck the air out of fire. So basically, some type of explosion is going to happen when that timer runs out. He said this place is built for, there's a lot of stuff in there. He said smallpox, I think he might have said anthrax, I'm not sure, but like different diseases in there that made to weaponize, that if a terrorist attack, they want that destroyed so it can't be used. And he said, so when this shuts down, it's going to explode and everybody in there will die. And that's where they're at this point. And like, it's come to the realization of like, the doors are shut. He can't open them. And he said, those doors shut, they never open again. And that it's going to explode, suck the air out of fire. That sounds awful. He said, there's no pain, but that just sounds terrible. And pretty much everybody's losing it. Like, what do you mean we're going to die? They're trying to get out, trying to get him to get them out. And so basically everyone's just kind of losing it, and you can't blame them. And then, Rick's like, we don't want this. Like, and then they're like, you can't keep us here. Like, you can't kill us. Like, why are you keeping us here? And he comes out pretty much and says, Rick, this is what you told me last night. You said there is no hope out there. He's like, I'm doing you guys a favor. Like, you said there is no hope. You don't know what it's like out there. And they're like, Rick, you said that? Like, well, I had to keep hope alive. And Shane starts losing it. Daryl starts losing it. And then Rick's kind of looking around, and they're all looking at him. And I think this might be one of the defining moments of, like, they are looking to Rick to this. And Rick looks at him and says, no, I don't believe you think there's no hope. You wouldn't have stayed to do this research if you didn't think there was hope. I don't think you would have let us in to help if you thought there was hope. And we find out that the test subject 19 was his wife. He said his wife was a brilliant doctor. She was sick. And he promised to research and try to figure this out. And said, he's like, he's sticking to his guns. Like they're doing a favor. And Rick comes back to what he said when they first got there was a chance. He goes, look, Lori's like, you just let us last as long as we can. Like, and then Rick's like, let us make a choice. All he wants a choice and a chance. And then finally, he lets him out and says, I can't open those big doors. I told you that. So you have to find a way out, but here's these doors to open up. Go ahead. And I think this is something that I think everybody has to pay attention to for the future of The Walking Dead. Rick says, I'm grateful, and he says, a day will come when you won't be. So I think we have to pay attention to that. And then he whispers something to Rick. And then as they're leaving, Jackie says, I'm staying. He said, there's nothing out there. I've made this decision. I think the loss of Jim, I think the only relationship was like they were friends. I don't know if she's related to T-Dog. I don't know if there was something there because T-Dog was like really upset that she wanted to stay. And then Andrea makes this decision. Now, Andrea's been in like a zombie mode, no pun intended, since Amy died. And so she is in like a zombie mode of like just lolling around, and she says, I'm staying too. Like, there's nothing out there. There's basically no point in living. If everything is dead, we're in this apocalypse, nothing's out there. We're going to have to live by scavenging and stuff. That's no way to live. Like, I'm going to go. And everybody's getting out. And luckily, if you guys all remember, Rick took this grenade from the police thing, and they're trying to get out. And Carol's like, Rick, I was washing your clothes, and this was in there. So they finally set off this grenade, and they're able to get out. But Andrea wants to stay, and another thing, a defining moment / relationship thing we have to pay attention to is Dale had said, like, I cared about you girls to Amy and Andrea. Like, he lost his wife, didn't have a family. He said, you are my family. And so Dale was like trying to get her to come out, and he finally just makes the decision of, okay, I'm going to stay. He says, you can't come into my life, make me care about people as a family for the first time since I lost my wife from cancer, and then just decide to leave. That was enough for Andrea to kind of be like, okay, let's go. So they get out, they run, and then the horrific explosion goes off, and the CDC is destroyed. Dr. Jenner's destroyed or dead, and then Jackie is dead as well. And it's a horrific explosion. But these quote-unquote main characters survived, and that's how it ends. I mean, we learn more about these characters a little bit. We learn more about what's really going on in this apocalypse, like what it looks like. And you kind of learned, as far as we know, there may be nothing out there. They're going to have to figure out what to do. And we kind of end the episode and the season 1 with them driving off. So now it's like they're driving off into the sunset. Where do they go from here? That explosion will bring a ton of walkers. But yeah, that's how it ends. So now we're done with season 1. And it's a great season. Going back and watching, like I said, how more gruesome it is, how much darker it is, the things happening, and great. This is just a great show, and that season's really good. And so it ends up like now we got to figure out, like, there's still things they've got to settle. The Shane and Lori thing is still not done. Now you've got Dale and Andrea's relationship. Like, there was that little stare off at the end of like, hey man, I was just trying to go. And now I feel like that relationship is strained. Rick and Lori's relationship might be a little strained. Maybe his relationship with everybody when he was like, yeah, well, there is no hope. Now the question is, where do they go? Do they try to go to that? I think it's Fort Bennett that he said. Do they try to go there? Where are they going to go? How are they going to survive? People are kind of looking to Rick for that leadership role to kind of make tough decisions. How is Rick and Shane's relationship going to go? So a lot of questions we need to answer to, and that will come in season 2. So we are done with season 1. So the next time we come back to this recap, we'll go to season 2, episode 1. So again, hopefully you guys are liking this. Hopefully if you've never watched this show and you're just listening to this, you have some thoughts. If you are watching it for the first time or rewatching it, maybe we have the same thoughts. Like I said, I'm doing my best. I have seen the whole thing, doing my best not to ruin it as I'm talking here. But again, I'm not lying. Some of this I forgot about. You remember, like I said, we're coming on to season 11 in August, the end of August here. So, I mean, there's a lot and some things you just forget about. But great show. Hope you guys are enjoying it again. The audio is wherever you listen to podcasts. Just type in the All Things Dead podcast and it will pop up. If you are listening to the audio version, please leave a review, a star, follow it, subscribe to it, however you do with your podcasts. The video version can be found on the Coach Steve Show YouTube channel. It's my other podcast. If you subscribe to it, you'll be able to get updates, and you go to the playlist, there'll be the All Things Dead podcast playlist. Until I make the decision if I want to make a whole YouTube channel for this, that's yet to be determined. But I appreciate everybody out there listening. Hope you enjoyed season 1. We will get to season 2 next time. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you on the next one.